The season of Barbenheimer is here, so we go back to the movie that put Christopher Nolan on the map, the 2000 mind-bending, twist-filled, incredible movie, Memento. This is Last Page. Issue 16 of Last Page. I am Maverick King, joined today by RemingtonCKing and over across the internet, Jason Cedars. Here today to talk about Memento, a movie that stands out amongst his catalog of movies, as everyone now knows Christopher Nolan as the big, epic Dark Knight franchise, Dunkirk, these big Inception, big scale movies. But this was the second movie that he made. His first movie was a black and white movie called Following. This one was the one that got him a lot of notoriety, had a roughly $9 million budget with a worldwide windfall of approximately $40 million. And this movie would lead to Insomnia, which would then lead to Batman Begins. This movie is very interesting. We've all seen this movie previously. You had seen it only once before. You rewatched it, so this is your second viewing. Jason's seen it multiple times. I've seen it multiple times. I've seen it quite a few times, but not in a while. The basic premise of this movie stars Guy Pearce, and he plays Leonard, a man suffering from memory loss, where he remembers his life up until an accident. Or not an accident, but an incident in which he loses his memory, and his wife is killed. And from that moment, he does not know. He can't remember more than 2 to 3 minutes of what has just happened. This movie then takes place going backwards. The first thing we see really is the last part of the movie, and we will get into the more spoilery stuff in just a few minutes, but we'll give initial thoughts of our feelings of the movie. Jason, you saw this movie. What did you think about Memento on your repeated rewatch of the movie?
How well the cast holds up. It's such a cool cast for that movie, and especially during that time frame. And doing a little research on this, it was supposed to be Brad Pitt as the role for this, but there was a scheduling conflict, and Guy Pearce was able to do it. And it's very funny how similar those two are at this time frame. You know, the late '90s, early 2000s, they were essentially the same kind of lead actor kind of feel to it and stuff. What's that, Remy? That's
you're leading down the path that I already wanted to go. So just keep going.
No, jump on it then. Yeah.
I just I still want you to give your thoughts, but
Clearly not.
No.
I was hoping to pull it out. I was like, yes, say it. I was already thinking it.
Yeah, I didn't catch the hint. Yeah, go ahead.
Fight Club. This movie is so similar to Fight Club in characters and in plot, and in how Guy Pearce looks. So many scenes where he with shirtless, where he just looks like fucking Brad Pitt straight out of Fight Club. So I thought that's where you were going, and I was like, please say it.
Yeah. And then when did Fight Club come out? Is that very similar?
99. Just 1 year before.
Yeah.
Did it? Yes, I learned. Did it though?
Oh yeah. I mean, you're right. It has the same.
I swear it came out in like 98. It was like one of those like earlier. I could swear.
Because then I had to look up when Matrix came out, because I was like, was it after or before when Carrie Ann Moss, was that, and this was right after Matrix. And that's actually why she got this role, is because of how well she did in Matrix. So it's funny. It's like that. And it's much my era of movies as well, as the late 90s, early 2000s. I think the ones that are really cemented in my mind is like me starting to really figure out what the message was in movies. And so when I remember seeing this movie for the first time, it had to be very near. I didn't see it at the theaters, but I must have seen it like right afterwards. Probably rented it from Blockbuster on the good old VHS. Probably. So I think early 2000s we still had that. But it's incredible though. Movies that you love and you think you've remembered everything about, that you still catch something new every single time you watch this. And I think this is one of those too, where the fact of how the movie's set up with the two timelines, very non-linear narrative of it. It's you are going to miss little things. But it's really good how the movie does hold your hand a little bit, where it overlaps a lot of the scenes from beginning to end, so you kind of remembering, you know, what just happened in the last one. And then it's so good, just like the movie we just watched, of making you feel what his mental state is. And trying to remember the movie that we just watched where we were also
so I'll clarify for our audience. When I say the movie goes backwards, it basically is that first shot is literally in reverse, where it's the title and you're getting the actors and stuff, and he's waving a picture that is going from clear to then blurry to then it's a Polaroid. For you kids that don't know, Polaroids, where someone could take a picture on a camera, it would have a little piece of paper. Paper's a thing. Well, anyway, not important. It comes out. A piece of paper comes out.
Polaroids are back. They're back
of the camera, and it was a paper, a square paper of what you just saw. Crazy technology for the time. Anyway, from that point on, it's a scene that's like 5 minutes long, 5 to 10 minutes long, and then we get an intermission of this of Leonard on the phone with someone, with unknown person, and it kind of gives you some more narrative of this, what's happening. And then it goes back to this previous scene from the scene you had just seen. So it's 5 to 10 minutes that go forward, and then it goes backwards, 5 to 10 minutes to catch you up just to that last point, and so on and so forth. Remington, your thoughts seeing this crazy amalgamation of memory?
I love it so much. Just as good as I was hoping the rewatch was going to be. I love a good thriller. Thriller is such a low-key underappreciated genre. And because, as I say, you get a lot of movies that just lean more towards horror or more towards action. And I feel like, a thriller is just kind of right in the middle of that. Where, not that I would say this is very much an action film, but there's some action elements to it. There's chases and gunfire and people getting beat up and kidnapped and stuff. So, but I just think it does it's for what it tries to do, it does it really well. It's not easy to make a movie that goes in reverse chronological order and like constantly bringing you forward, but doing it in a way that's actually makes sense. A movie like this could have easily just been a mess where you just watch it and nothing makes sense and you're constantly confused. But I think it does just a good enough job, or not just good enough, but a great job of constantly filling you in just enough. And every scene that goes gives you just enough to keep understanding that and like building on itself. So by the end of the movie, it's and I'm a sucker for a good like ending of a movie that's just like, oh, holy shit, that is not how I fucking thought this was gonna go. I can't say enough good things about this movie, except for all the things that I'm about to say when we do this full review.
I can say enough good things about
it. It's a great movie. Great movie, especially on the scale it is. It's shot, at least, I guess I should have double checked, but it looks like it's shot in the Valley in LA. So it just seems like a low budget movie that was done with Hollywood actors in the area, but not for, it is just really incredible. Like you said, what they're able to accomplish, because it's really easy if you like to have a lot of plot holes or to just have kind of a messy, like, oh, it's a concept movie of, oh yeah, he loses his memory and we're going to go back. It's an interesting concept, but to pull it off, and especially great acting performances, like you said, Jason, the movie that popped up in my mind, Pulp Fiction. And the reason why is because 94 Pulp Fiction came out and then everyone wanted to make a Pulp Fiction style movie. That's where you would get more of the out of place scenes. So in Pulp Fiction, it just bounces around scene. It's not really consequential to how the story of Pulp Fiction is told that they're out of place. It just works. Whereas this movie, it's not just a gimmick. It's not just this movie goes backwards, and that's because it's an interesting idea of watching a movie scene for scene that goes in a backwards order. It's literally puts you in the place of Leonard, who can't remember. So every time,
I gotta clarify, you keep saying can't remember. Remember, he can't form new memories. He's not lost any memories, or he just can't form any new ones.
A little litigious, but okay.
Schmosby, as my wife would say.
But yes, he cannot form new memories because he has a condition. And so when a scene happens, when you start a scene, you're out of place as the audience because you don't know what's happening because the scene just started. And then when it catches up at the very end of that scene, you catch up to the beginning of what you had just saw. And you're like, oh, that's right. It connects to here. And that keeps happening through the movie. So you're constantly re-put in where Leonard is, and you're trying to figure out, even though once Joe Patriano shows up, you start, okay, that guy is Lenny. Lenny is like a friend, kind of. Teddy. Not Lenny. Teddy. So anyway, we've all talked. It's a great movie. You should watch it. We'll get into spoilers. It's going to be, if you haven't seen the movie, this is going to be confusing as hell because it's already, me talking about it now, it's already kind of confusing to try to.
Yeah, it sounds confusing.
So watch the movie, but it's 23 years old. So if you haven't seen it already, go fuck yourself. Yes. So Jason.
One point I was comparing it to was how in Emily Blunt in the movie we just saw, how we were put into her confusing mind state, how the movie was. You know, this movie, another Sicario, yes, it does a very, very good job of putting us exactly as his mental state is. You know, the confusingness of the shots, how the movie's starting off. You know, it's, you know, my wife just asked me, it's like, okay, what point did the movie end at? In the beginning, I was like, well, it ends at the middle of the movie. You know, it's like in the middle is like it's hard to, and it ends. Or it begins where it ends. You know, just trying to say that, it's like, okay, I've confused myself by trying to explain this movie. So it is something that it's like what we're sitting here and trying to do is to explain this will not do it justice. It is one of those, you have to just sit in the seat and like watch it. And not just one time, but like 2 or 3 times. So awesome movie. And I don't really know where to start. If we do start at the beginning or at the end.
Start with that. I really love it. And I was looking, I'm like, okay, I wish I need to watch the behind the scenes. I've read like the behind the scenes, but I would need to watch it because the initial shot is Guy Pearce's hand waving the picture, and it's the dead body of Teddy, and he's waving the picture, and his hand like stops, and I'm like, did they freeze it? And it's not frozen, but it's like a hard stop, and I'm like, okay, is there like a surface behind there? Because his hand's so steady. And I was like confused by this because it's very tempt. The way he's waving it and then stops and then the title goes over it. It's really cool. And I love just how still his hand is in that shot. And then, yes, it goes literal backwards where it's rewinding and the gun, the bullet goes back from Teddy's skull into the gun. And he's like, wait. And then we start to get the narrative. And I think at that point, or at least shortly thereafter, is when it's black and white. And the black and white scenes that take place throughout the movie is him, is Guy Pearce on the phone in his motel room with unknown person. One of the things I really like about this movie is that it does not spell everything out. Even if you go back and watch, and I started to see some people on the internet, I started to see some like, oh, here's exactly who he's on the phone with. Here's exactly and I'm like, this is a movie I don't want to know. Like, I don't want to try to connect all the dots. I like watching this movie and having the confusion because it's much more of an immersive experience. If you go in and you're still like, I still am not 100% sure at what point his memory is reliable and which point his memory is just fantasy.
Well, I think. Oh, go ahead, Bernie.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, and I'll come.
Why I think this movie has withstood the test of time and is still like something we want to talk about is you as a viewer watching this movie, you get an experience, but then you talking about it with someone else afterwards, like, did you catch this, or what do you think happened here, or when do you think this? That's why this movie is so cool, because all of us will have like different bits of information that we picked up from that scene, and then our collective conversation will be like, okay, that's what happened. You know, it's so many one of those movies where you're not having those moments on your own. You're having those with people at a bar or at a party, or in the car or something like that. So it's such a cool talk about like what happened movie. So sorry, go ahead.
You're good. I think it's very fun to just go through, even though it's a stressful movie. It is stressful because you're constantly, you feel bad for Guy Pearce because you're just like, this is a horrible situation to be in. And I like that it's like every time you think that you've got you understand what's happening, you start to trust him a little bit less. Like every time something happens and you're like, oh, okay, so like this seems solid. And then like it builds it, and then it takes you back a little bit further and you're like a little bit less sure. And it just constantly does that back and forth, back and forth. It's like something I like about that is when you finally start getting scenes of him back as a insurance investigator, you can tell he's a dick. He's not nice and he's not charming. Like he is sometimes when he's like in his fresh, just now blank slate, and he's talking to Bert, for the motel manager or whatever. He's like seems kind of nice and charming and is very like cordial. He's like, hey, I have a condition. He's like, you don't remember me, and he doesn't seem like a nice guy. Like he's just genuinely like feels sorry for the fact, or like feels bad for having to explain this. But then you go back to him being a claims agent, and it's like he's like totally cold, doesn't care about this lady and her problems, and so I just like that. It kind of like as it goes back to those scenes, and that's like, once it starts going back to those scenes, it's like that's when you really start to get the idea that like kind of not a nice guy.
Yeah.
And then
I don't feel like he ever falls into the good guy kind of role, even throughout this movie. You never feel like he is the protagonist, the good guy. You like might even think that is he the bad guy? Is he this crazy murderer or something like that? And then you start to figure out it's like, okay, maybe he is actually, because he broke out of a mental hospital, correct?
That's not clear. It's not. That is it is ambiguous as to the legal state. Like, so he was, and that's where this movie starts to get messy. So I'll bring back the narrative of, so the movie starts, we have the opening scene. Guy Pearce basically is, despite the fact he can't form new memories, he is trying to find his wife's killer, and that his wife was killed in a home invasion. And in that invasion, he was injured. He had a brain injury, and he cannot form new memories.
But now all of that might not even be true.
Well, and that's as the movie unfolds, you, as you said, start to question more and more of what is true and what is not. And it does a really nice job of, like you said, little by little as the movie goes on. It isn't like you believe this narrative and then there's a giant twist and now everything's changed. You just get that feeling as the movie, they keep giving you a little more and keep giving you a little more. But he resorts to having to write himself notes for everything that he wants to keep as a memory or keep as something he can reference as that builds his reality.
That's a fact.
And then ones that are really important, he tattoos on his own body.
Would you find out that those aren't facts either? Those are he tattoos himself with fake information. So it's like you second guess absolutely every step of this movie. It's like, what is real? What is actually really happening? What is his changed memory? Was his wife diabetic? That scene where he's pinching her on the leg, it's like, that's when he was really injecting her, and he had changed his memory, of it. And so that's the part of this movie that gets just so good after rewatches and talking about it like this with all of us having some, that's right. That's what happened. So Peter Jenkins was never really a character, or Sammy Jenkins.
Important to remember Sammy Jenkins, because the legendary Grass Valley rock band known as Tailspin Tom had once changed their name to Remember Jenkins. They had a hit song, which I believe was I'm Free. Just a little shout out for all you Grass Valley historians there.
Also Friday the 13th. It's Friday the 13th again. When will my misery ever end?
So now that we have that out of the way, very important.
But was Peter Jenkins even really there?
Sammy Jenkins! God damn it!
I keep saying Peter.
The whole point of the movie is to remember Sammy Jenkins, and you have forgotten him twice.
What's Fight Club? Remember what's that character's name that they constantly talk about, which is acted by Meatloaf, is the character in Fight Club. It's remember Paul.
His name is Robert Paulson.
Robert Paulson. See, another Fight Club connection to this.
There's also a Fight Club moment. Either my brain just made this up, but when before they start to move forward, like when they're doing the black and white Sammy Jenkins scene of him, and then he is injecting his wife over and over again with insulin, and then eventually they institutionalize him, and the camera showing him sitting there
Yes, I know.
And I couldn't tell if there was a split. It is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. There's a split second right before they cut where it's Guy Pearce.
Because that's when it really cemented into me that, yeah, Jenkins was never there. That was Guy Pearce in the hospital. That was Guy Pearce injecting his wife. Every single scene where it's Jenkins interacting with his wife was actually Guy Pearce. And I really didn't catch that until this playthrough, where he was in the mental hospital. He murdered his own wife, and he now messes with his own memories now and broke out of that hospital to now like solve the murder with his wife, which he murdered his wife.
Well, he didn't. Let's clarify. He didn't murder his wife.
Okay.
His wife basically assisted suicided.
Tested him and did the ultimate test with her own life, just like, I'm going to really see if he's faking this or not. And I'm going to ask him to keep injecting me. And that was his wife did this after that she got raped and beat up in the bathroom years later. She was like, I can't live like this anymore. I need to know if he's really got this or if he's faking it. And that didn't really click until this walkthrough or this playthrough right here. It's like, oh my God, man, because I don't know why I didn't register that one. Where I always thought this movie that he just eventually found the murderer, a couple years ago, which Teddy does say that we found the guy, we murdered him together and did all this stuff. It's like, I thought that's how it ended. I was like, no. It's been multiple John G's that he's been murdering over the years that this Teddy guy is beginning to do just so he can make some money off drug dealers. Because I think they were splitting money. And this Teddy was such a corrupt guy that he found this tool of a person to use to start taking out drug dealers. That didn't click to me for some reason from all the other playthroughs or watchings.
I definitely did not catch that splice.
Okay.
It's like literally as if you like. That's why I didn't even rewind it. I was just like, did I just see what I thought I saw? But it was very
No, I remember. I mean, that scene is very good, but. Interesting. See, I'm telling you, man, Nolan took some things from Fight Club into this movie.
No, that's definitely great observation. Great observation. The very chiseled cut, shirtless body of Guy Pearce.
Come on, dude. He has like same hair, like the kind of spiky hair. But also to that point, what did you just say? Sorry, I was saying I got.
No one can remember anything in this episode. All the memories are shot.
Hey, something that did, I won't say this concerns me, but I really relate to Guy Pearce's character in that I jot down everything that I need to remember in a day. I constantly make lists of like, this is what I need to do today. This is what I need to do this week. And I literally did it a couple hours ago before I went to the gym. I literally was like, all right, this is what I need to accomplish today. Because sometimes if I don't write it down, I won't remember it till the end of the day when I'm laying down in bed with my eyes closed and I'm just like, fuck. Anyway, totally unrelated.
Wonder if Tony sneaks in something on that list and you just do it without, I guess I got to go do the laundry.
That's funny. Other than, there's a 0% chance I would mistake her handwriting for mine because mine is basically illegible.
One cool thing, just because you said that, one thing I like about this movie is he's writing everything down. He has a very distinct penmanship with his print that he writes anything down in. Then Teddy is trying to tell him, write down, you can't trust Carrie Ann Moss. Being like, write it down. He's like, okay. He writes it in cursive.
Yeah.
He writes it in cursive, and then quickly, when he looks at it again, he's like, he erases it. I like that.
That is a nice detail. Yeah.
Little does he know he was telling him the truth of do not trust that crap.
The movie is, there's a great sadness. I think that was watching this movie again, the first times I watch it, the nuance of how they're telling this story, but then also the story itself are so captivating. But this time I just was like, the longer the movie goes, I just get sad. And it's sad of this guy that can't remember anything and he's not a great person or anything, but the way that he's being manipulated and used by Carrie Ann Moss and by Joe Patriano. And then the music, which is absent through most of this movie, you really only get it in a few parts, a little of like the foot chase scenes, but it starts to give you that very Nolan-esque, that much more, this movie and also Prestige, very similar kind of somber tones to them. And anyway.
I love the lack of music. I love it. It's just, again, something that I thought, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I really appreciate a good low budget film, a movie that you can tell.
No, you don't. He hates horror movies. The backbone of the independent filmmaker. The movies that you can make for virtually nothing and make a career and make an American dream out of, you hate those movies and you hate those people that make those movies. Admit it.
Yeah, because those movies suck.
No, they don't.
The horror genre is trash.
There is
5 good horror movies ever made.
You've watched 5 horror movies.
I've watched at least 6.
Have you seen Friday the 13th?
Yeah, actually.
Which one?
I've seen the first one.
The original or the remake?
The original.
I don't actually like the Friday the 13th movie. It was kind of a straw man.
Oh, no. I mean, the only good horror movies that ever existed are like the first Saw, the first Scream, the Conjuring. The first Conjuring, I think, is pretty good.
You put Conjuring as a horror movie that you're putting on your top 5, and you're not going to go with The Exorcist, the actual backbone. You haven't seen The Exorcist.
You're right. I haven't seen The Exorcist. But I'm sure I didn't say I don't think The Exorcist is bad, but I think 99% of every horror movie ever made is trash.
See what I have to do with Jason?
But I'm not shaming those movies for their low budget. I'm shaming them because they're all super predictable and rely on the exact same tropes and have no originality. That's what horror movie problems
You could have watched M3 again. That was a lot of fun. That came out recently. Barbarian was very interesting with your Whitest Kids You Know guy. Anyway, I'm going on a rabbit trail here.
Yeah, that's a totally another episode. That's we should.
Point is, I appreciate regardless of what you say, I appreciate that this movie has a low budget and is it's not bare bones. I mean, $9 million is still a pretty penny, especially for the early 2000s. But
not for a budget, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just like it's compared to Saw, the first Saw movie we looked up, and it's like $1.2 million budget, which is crazy. It seems like a much even greater scale.
I need to verify that. That's crazy.
Yeah, Blair Witch is something like that. I can't remember what the
we're talking about, but I was talking about good horror movies. So, but also, I compare the ending of this movie similar to the feeling of Saw, which is it's one of those. It's right underneath, right under your nose, but still gives you that gut punch. Like, oh fuck, that does not feel good. And yeah, that's how I remember feeling the first time I watched this movie. Is sad. When we get to the end of it, I'm just like, oh god, that's how it ends. He kills him. He's gonna keep killing more people, and like I kind of feel bad for it, but not really, because like the type of person he is the person that gets to the end of the trail and is like, nope, I can't accept reality. I'm going to do this shit again until I'm just literally just an infinite loop. And it really is. The feelings that you get from the end of this movie are really, and throughout the movie are really strong. But yeah, I was going to say the ending of the movie is so good, but then just kind of how it builds, like you said, just over the course of the movie, it's just sad and you just feel bad and stressed out.
It was such a like back and forth of that sad feeling with him, because when you get some of the scenes where people are fucking with him just straight up, like Natalie fucking with him, or being talking shit to him, so he beats her up, and then she's like, I'm gonna walk right back in here and act like nothing ever happened,
She's sitting in the driveway.
She's staring at him. That shit was horror movie-esque.
That is so gut-wrenching. But then you get the scene. I don't think it's right after that. But then when he calls the escort to come in and sleep with him and then set these things up, and he is getting her to trick him into thinking, this once again, this is going to fuel me looking for my wife's murder. So he is doing this to himself at the same point that everyone else is doing the same thing. So he's fucking with himself just as much as everyone else is fucking with him, and so that's when it kind of like really like hits home of, oh, well, I'm not actually really sad for this guy, because I think you are just like this murderer, this undercover murderer, something where deep inside of you now none of these people are innocent. So I think that's the other thing that they kind of beat in, that this is bad people or drug dealers or things like that he's actually killing, but he's still killing people, it's still like doing some of this very nefarious kind of act. So yeah, it was that back and forth emotion for me the whole time. I'm like, oh, I'm feel bad for you, but at the same time, no, you're digging your own grave right now, buddy.
I do like that. I like that. I will defend Teddy / John G's honor here a little bit. he's not that bad of a guy.
No, I agree.
He's offing like terrible, horrible, drug, like upper end drug dealer types. So it's not like he's killing innocent people. Yeah. He's just and then he's just taking off with their money. Not like
if what he's telling us is true, because all we get is him telling Guy Pearce's character in that warehouse at the very end what it all is, and it's like, is that really? Were you the cop that was working on his case with for his wife? Were you the one at all these years feeding him the information? So no, you're absolutely right. I think he was the good guy or the better character in this movie of all these people. But yeah, even then, do we really know that that's the truth? What's so great about this movie? Yeah, what is real, what is not?
It definitely does give me a little bit of that also, because it is interesting. It's almost, that's why, again, dude, it's so similar to Fight Club. And but the reason I wouldn't call it a ripoff of Fight Club is because it came out so close that it's like, obviously the writing, who wrote this movie?
So this movie was written
yes, I can't wait to talk about this. Yeah, his brother.
This movie was written as a short story by Jonathan Nolan.
Oh, right.
Before he published it, Christopher Nolan and him adapted it and made it a screenplay, a full-length movie screenplay, and then turned it into a movie. And then he would later.
So did Jonathan Nolan, have some watch Fight Club and then wrote this kind of story or something like that? What was he inspired by?
He might have read it. He might have read Fight Club.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's right. It is a book.
Yeah. Because all these similar feelings actually, do come from a similar source.
That's what's so interesting is that it's written by Jonathan Nolan and it was adapted Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan, when this movie came out, was 29.
Wow.
So just a young emerging talent. And I know, like, as of recently, plenty of criticisms with especially Tenet, with the writing of those of movie, and even Inception. It's like where they became so heavy with exposition and the characters tend to not be very well thought out, or and I don't want to just be disrespectful, but a lot of the times the characters don't land. This movie is really good at keeping of setting the table with very limited actors. Just there's only like a fucking 24 people in this movie.
15 people listed on the cast.
15 people, and it was made in 25 days. Like,
wow,
a very fast movie, but it does
only like 3 locations. I think 4 locations in the whole movie. Yeah. Natalie's house, hotel. The warehouse, bar, and
the sites of which the murders happen.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, very limited.
Lots. But yeah, it's. But I do really like what just Guy Pearce's the way they write Guy Pearce, but then also his performance. He just now it's unfortunate because I really like his performance in this movie of constantly showing you a different side, and it's like when he's with the sex worker lady and he's just saying put the things around the room and he's tricking himself to wake up. There's like the look of confusion on his face when he like opens the door and it's her and she's doing a line of coke. And then he's just like sad. He's just sad again because it's just constantly this battle for purpose and meaning of which he is very fleeting in his day-to-day life.
There's a line in the movie. It's perfect. He's creating a puzzle that he can't solve.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that just sums up the whole movie. That should be the title.
Yeah. Now Guy Pearce, he's just the bad guy in everything. He's just the villain, the politician, the corporate asshole that's poisoning the water or whatever. That's like, he's like every movie Guy Pearce is in now. He's just the most evil person. Like, I am going to cut the trees that are standing over picketing writers and actors. That's like Guy Pearce in every movie now, which is a crazy made up character. But it's just like he's really good in this movie, and his American accent is very, very well done. Very well done.
As opposed to Carrie Ellis from fucking Mission Impossible. Jesus Christ.
But his American accent's really good, but he sounds so much like Hugh Jackman in The Prestige. It is very interesting. The way they talk, the cadence in which they talk, the way that Christopher Nolan uses voiceover, like the heavy, loud voiceover. When Guy Pearce is doing the voiceover in this movie, it's very much like Hugh Jackman in The Prestige. So I think a lot of the kind of things, the cool ambiance techniques that Christopher Nolan uses in this movie translate to some of his other movies, and Prestige being one of my favorite movies of all time. Also translates to that movie, but just some cool nuances that Nolan shows throughout this movie that translates to other works.
I was reading that in 2017, this film got deemed So I guess they have a preservation of national films. Like there's something where it's like where every year maybe they put one in like Hall of Fame. Well, this one got in 2017, being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant enough that it's in the National Film Registry, you know? And so just that, like that, this style of film is like now like, okay, yep, this is going to be cemented in history as being one of the best, you know. That's so cool, you know. It's very cool that we can still create storytelling narratives that are so unique and so different, where we watch a movie almost every day and watch something like this and like, yes, you know, the storytelling of movies can still feel fresh, feel different, you know.
I do want to piggyback on the Guy Pearce praise. I do love a good villain, and I love somebody that can play a good villain, even if it is maybe a little bit redundant for him. And I do think that he shows very capable range in this movie. I don't know. Is this the first movie that like put him on the map?
No, he was in LA Confidential. Great movie. That came out in 98, 97, maybe. But he was in that movie with Russell Crowe. That's a fantastic film noir movie that I heavily recommend. But he plays a goody two-shoe cop. Like a glass wearing, by the book. We don't do anything. And, you know, he's with a bunch of corrupt cops. Really, really. If you haven't seen that movie, definitely.
It's actually on my list of like movies I need to watch because there's so much praise about LA Confidential.
But very diverse role for him.
Yeah, so I think within this movie, I think, like I said, I think he could be charming. He can be empathetic, and as I was going to say, he can be kind of scary. And when he's stressed out, he never is like over the top. You can tell that so that something that I like in this movie is when she's yelling at him, he stays pretty composed for like what I think most people, he endures what a lot of people wouldn't initially before he hits her. But I think that kind of goes back to,
not that he should have hit her.
Of course not.
Of course not. We are an anti-domestic violence show. And so I'm just making that record the case for the, you know, the people out there that didn't pick up of how anti-domestic violence we are. All right. So sorry to interrupt.
Okay. I also don't agree with actually murdering people or
not a murder show at all.
I don't
we are anti-murder. Justice system works 100% of the time.
So anyway, oh God, I forgot I was talking about.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
I have a condition. No, just kidding. I didn't forget. But no, what I was saying was when right before he hits her, and like he's kind of taking it, is I think it ties in really well with his character. It's a small detail, but I think it ties in really well with him being an insurance claims agent. Clearly, he's dealing with a lot of people that just fucking lose their shit and yell at him all the time, and just being like, "No, of course I did this," and like, you know, he's going to deal with highly stressed out people. So I think it kind of makes sense that he's like, even though he gets stressed out over other things in the movie, he like in that scene he's actually pretty tight up until the point where he hits her because he's just like. He feels like he has to, I guess. But Guy Pearce, really love that actor, even if he is in one of the worst Marvel movies ever made in Iron Man 3. But he is in a movie.
God, he's Killian
He's the Mandarin. Spoiler alert for that garbage movie.
Jason, has Mimi made you watch Lawless yet?
Oh no, we watch that on like almost a yearly basis. Yeah, and
yeah, you do.
Yeah, we just the other day when I came in for there, we love Lawless. Yeah,
so good. It's such an underappreciated movie. Nobody talks about it, but it's got stellar cast: Tom Hardy, Shia LaBeouf, some random dude.
Probably the only great role is Shia.
Yeah, no, honestly, Shia's best performance by a landslide. Yeah. And Guy Pearce as the villain in this movie is so creepy and so scary and disgusting in the cleanest way because it's just.
Oh, and he's so of that time. You feel like he is from that era.
Yeah. Bigot, gross man. Gross
dude. Tom Hardy is like, I think there's a line in Sin City where it talks about Marv. Like he was born in the wrong era. He should have been a Viking, or I think they compare him to like a Viking. And I think about that.
Swinging a battle axe.
Yeah, like I think about that with so many people, just in general. Like you were born in the wrong era. You should have been in an Egyptian, or in pirate times, or something like that. Like you were not fit for this era. Yeah, I feel like that guy was fit for the 1940s or the 20s.
Definitely a prohibition guy. 100%. 100%.
Definitely knocking down doors in Chicago.
Another great part about Guy's character in this is his constant adjusting of the Polaroid camera that's on him, because this is the old school. Like, I feel like that's even like 80s Polaroid camera, because this is the flat one. And I don't know if you guys even remember this. It is a flat Polaroid camera, and you have to push it to pop everything out. It's like a transformer, where it's like it's a bag that turns into a camera, and they never show it that much in it. They just always show him adjusting the strap and that it's there, and then actually taking the picture. But I feel like it was such like a cool thing that he has to hold on to the whole time, no matter what's going on, so he can make sure to always have these pictures and be taking them. And yeah, I don't think they do that enough justice of the lengths that he has to go through. And just, I mean, there's always actors have their little mannerism things that they do, like what we're talking about in another episode where I can't remember which actor you compared it to, but you're doing something even if you're not talking, you know? And I feel like that's, yeah, adjusting of the strap, and him like as clothes as another guy's clothes, which you don't figure out to the very end of why they always do look so baggy on him, and why, yeah, his, I mean, he's only dressed in like 10% of this movie. I feel like he is naked half the time. He's like, I don't know if they were doing it just to show off the tattoos or to get the female audience invested or whatnot. But yeah, Guy is barely dressed in this movie. But when I did like the attention to detail with that he has to carry around this camera the whole time.
If there was any if the final straw, like if you needed any more indication that he's actually kind of a psychopath, is the scene when he's over at Carrie Ann's house and he gets into bed with his pants and belt still on.
Yeah, that threw me off.
I was like, clearly out of his mind. Clearly, who the fuck does that? That's crazy.
And then the self tattooing. That's what also was a mark of, okay, you are how. First off, you know how to do all this, you know, to make this whole elaborate jailhouse kit of self-tattooing, and then being able to actually do it, and then being actually doing it legibly, you know, and actually to create a decent tattoo on yourself. But I think that was a funny part of the movie, of when he chooses to go to a tattoo parlor to get tattooed, and then him doing himself. And then him being able to afford everything that he does too. I know they bring that up slightly throughout it, that he has money from the settlement or his wife's dying, but yeah, he is constantly throwing around money, you know, and him losing a lot of his stuff all the time. I'm like, what, do you have a bankroll somewhere, or a credit card you hide somewhere on you, or credit card numbers tattooed on your skin so you can get this to pay for everything with this right here, you know?
Yeah, getting into bed with your clothes on. If you wake up sober with your clothes on, there is a big problem upstairs with you, buddy. Just saying right now.
Yeah, good point.
Final thought. So, like, this is a much less structured review, just because this movie is completely unstructured or traditionally structured, I should say. But I feel like we've kind of flushed everything out. Any final thoughts, feelings about either certain characters, or shout out Mark Boone Jr., who plays a small role, but plays the desk at the motel, the manager guy, Bert, who's also Flass, the racist against Greek guy, dirty cop in Batman Begins. Also fantastic in Sons of Anarchy. Dude is that phenomenal in all the seasons of Sons of Anarchy. You want to give that guy a shout
out. Final thoughts. I don't know. I would say I like. There's only. I feel like the only like potential negatives, like I really don't have any negatives on this. There's just a couple, like, what about this and what about that? We kind of talked about it earlier a little bit too. It's just like, it's very well done for a very tough concept. It's executed so well that there's a couple scenes where you're like, his memory seems to go a little bit longer here for some reason, a little bit shorter here.
Yeah, that confused me too, is when it happens. Is it when he goes to sleep, or when he hears a door slam, or is it just at convenient storytelling times? You know,
a little bit, and it does seem to coincide also when he's like hyper stressed out. Is like that seems when his memory really shortens up, which makes more sense. But I also think like Teddy / John G. Feels like he should have bounced town a while ago. Like it just seems like one of those things. You're like, this dude's constantly murdering people, but also can't remember who to murder. So it seems like maybe after the first time went well, you would have just been like, you know what, I'm just going to let this guy go. He's not going to remember who the fuck I am anyway.
I mean, he's probably LAPD, or they don't specifically say which town they're in, but it looks like Los Angeles. Yeah. I think that generally his character, you get away with it once, make a bag here, make a bag there. It's like a typical dirty cop. You're just going to do it till the wheels fall off a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's like keeping a dangerous animal as a pet. It could possibly break out.
That's a great analogy.
But is that you've continued final thoughts or even a rating? Are we at that point?
Yeah, you can give your, if you want to start us off with the rating, give us your final thoughts on rating, Jason.
Absolutely love this movie. Top movies of all time, in my opinion. Collecting Blu-rays, which I'm probably going to bite myself in the ass at this point. Blu-rays of my favorite movies, just so I have an actual physical copy of something where it's not just all digital. And that's one of the, what am I at? Like probably 100. It's on that shelf of one of the movies I own and always want to rewatch and recommend to people. And even on this time, again, catching things I hadn't seen before. So absolutely love this movie. Absolutely love movies like this that are confusing, that have great conversation. Like we could talk about this at the bar for hours, and little things that we picked up and saw. So can't give this movie a high enough rating, and I can't recommend it more. So 10 out of 10, double thumbs up. Just such an enjoyable watch, and just such a great cast. I think that's the other thing too, is I walked away with it just really, really enjoying all those actors, and at that point in their careers too. It's just a lot of fun.
9 out of 10. This movie's phenomenal. A must watch for anyone that loves movies. You want to watch a unique movie. You don't want to watch the 50th sequel to a mega franchise movie that we've seen a billion times over. This is a truly unique viewing experience, whether you've seen it 0 times and it's your first time seeing it, or it's your 5th time seeing it. Mandatory watch. Is it the most enjoyable movie to watch? I think that's kind of where I'm like, it's a 9 out of 10. Phenomenal movie, excellent movie. But it's, it is a journey of struggle that you are along for the ride. So Guy Pearce, phenomenal performance, and a great, just this movie. And then obviously Batman Begins, just the way they rebooted Batman was so excellent. And then Prestige, when I saw Prestige in theaters, that for me, and I think when we think of directors or filmmakers, just filmmakers in general, there is, when you're born, we're products of the 80s and 90s. When you're born, it's like, all right, we were born into a world, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, George Lucas, these people are already established. You are born into that world. But what's cool about someone like Christopher Nolan, or recently we gushed over Denis Villeneuve, when there's a new director or a new filmmaker that comes out and you are now experiencing the phenomenon that is that filmmaker. And Nolan, with this movie into Prestige, and even Inception, just seeing the concepts that he's coming up with, it was really cool. And that was my first favorite director of movies that I saw as they came out. Although this one, obviously, I was too young to watch it when it came out, but still a filmmaker of the era. Great to watch his career take off. Kind of missed some steps as of late, but I do think that Oppenheimer, I'm very excited for this movie, and I do think it'll be great. 9 out of 10. Rembo.
9 out of 10. My only gripes are the ones I just said, but it's so good. I can't say it's so original because it does take a little bit of Fight Club in there, but yeah, all things considered, very unique film. And I like that there isn't really a moral to the story. Like, you don't get to the end of the story and you're like, well, what did we learn today? Like, it's kind of just, other than it's sometimes like, I guess, maybe confronting the truth is not, like, some people, like, there's the aspect of not confronting the truth because it's easier to live a lie. There's something like that. But I like that there's like not really, like you don't get to the end of the movie and you're just like, you feel like there's this message. It's just kind of like a good story with good characters and just very, 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 I enjoy it, even if it doesn't make you feel good. There's something to be said for that. 9 out of 10, easy 9 out of 10. Argument to be made for half, but I'll stick with the whole numbers.
And that's Last Page.